All right. Hello. Welcome to episode 61 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Jeremy Palmer along with Clark Palmer here. Every Sunday, it's about 7:45 Eastern time. So just had let me tell you something. This has been an awesome week of sports. I mean, when you talk about college football, pro football, the World Cup, and I've been wall-to-wall TVs all day, and they released the college rankings today. Like, it's been pretty awesome. Like, I got to tell you, this time of year is pretty cool. It's about to tone down a lot, in the next few weeks. But the World Cup is actually heating up since we're into the round of 16 now. So that'll keep us busy. But we have to open with, unfortunately, we have to open with the really, to me, disappointing game by the Dolphins. And we were just texting about this, and I decided, we should save it for the podcast. I mean, look, I'm just really disappointed by the game today. That game was there for the taking. Jimmy Garoppolo goes out in basically the first or second series, and they bring in, Brock Purdy, who I remember.
You've never heard of, and I've never heard of until today.
Yeah. I was thinking he played for one of those Big 12 schools, Iowa State, Baylor. I know he played for one of them. I can't remember which one. And, and I'm just like, okay, here we go. I realize even if the Dolphins win, this is kind of like, well, you beat a backup quarterback, but I was just like, all right, this is it. Let's do some damage. Dolphins score on the first play of the game, which that was insane. I was kind of like watching it going, what, did San Francisco not watch the film of what the Dolphins do? Like, we run that play all the time. And it was like, no problem. 75
It
yard
was kind of all
touchdown.
downhill from there.
Yeah. So look, Tua was terrible for the most part. He had a couple of nice drives at the end, one of which kind of got screwed up because of, that one of the catches got overturned on a fourth down, which kind of made it pretty difficult for the Dolphins to, they had a nice drive going and it kind of just stifled them. So, I think, we'll start with what I was happy about. I thought the protection was okay.
Considering Armstead was out.
Him. Right. I thought that they did a decent job of, giving him a chance. And especially in the first half, the offense was working. Like, guys were open. Like, those were throws that were there to be made. For whatever reason, Tua didn't make them. And, I thought they did a decent job hanging in there. I thought for three quarters the defense was okay, but it was a very confusing game because I felt like, like I said, it was sitting right there. It was available. Like, they could have, if the Dolphins would have just played average football, they could have won. And I feel like they were just really bad. And so that's disappointing. The offense started to pick it up a little bit, but I think we got to understand kind of what this team is. Like, I was kind of holding out till after the bye, see what the defense was going to be like, but I think it's kind of decided, like, the offense has to carry this team. If the offense is not really good, they're going to have a really hard time because
specifically the passing game, because they don't run the ball very well.
Right. At San Francisco, you knew what San Francisco was going to do with their backup quarterback in, and they still couldn't stop him. So I think this is what we're going to be stuck with, for the rest of the season. If the offense doesn't really play well, it's going to be really hard. And going forward, like one of my friends was asking me, do you think the Dolphins can win out? And I said, listen, I just want to win the next week. Like, I just hope we can win another game. Like, I'm not worried about looking that far into the future. So, yeah, the disappointing part is that, the offense ran into a little bit of, you get some pressure on them. And, Tua really reverted back to, like you said, making ill-advised passes and rushing the ball out there. And, then he was throwing the ball high the whole first half. And so, it's he looked rattled. And so that's disappointing. if they're going to figure this out and make the playoffs, they got to figure that out. They got to figure out how to be more consistent on offense throughout more of the game. At least just move the ball to midfield so you can at least keep the field position. So,
right. So I mean, the good things from this game: the touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. That's the best deep ball he's thrown all year long. I mean, I don't want to say he got him totally in stride, but that's probably the most in stride that he's going to get Tyreek Hill. So that was pretty awesome. The first touchdown, I mean, good job by Tua getting the ball to him quickly, and then he just, he ran. And it's surprisingly, it wasn't Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, So when he got it to 23-17, I'm like, all right, Tua hasn't really played well most of this game, but he's got a drive going now, and, he didn't make some plays. I mean, the passes, he was trying to get it, like, over the defensive backs to the receivers in the first half, and he, I think the throws could have been a little better. Some of those throws were kind of tough, and some of it in Tua's defense, like one of them, I felt like Waddle should have gone back a little bit more because he's throwing it over, and Waddle's trying to jump up and grab it because the ball had to go over the defenders to get to Waddle. So, some of those throws are kind of tough. At the same time, Tua was off last week. Like, some of his throws were kind of off, and to be honest, the offense didn't play that well last week. So that was a little concerning because they were playing Houston last week. So, yeah, the throws were off. I mean, the first interception was really bad because he was kind of getting rushed, and it's kind of like, dude, like, just throw the ball into the dirt or just go down. Like, don't throw that pass. The second one was just a bad throw because he could have gotten the ball to Tyreek Hill. He just, he made a really bad throw, and it turned into an interception. So, yeah, and, look, like we were saying before the season, if they're not going to play good defense and be able to run the ball, then we kind of have concerns, particularly against, like, look, San Francisco. We can say what we want about San Francisco's offense, but their defense is pretty good. So, if we can't run the ball, then I just feel like that's going to be kind of a challenge, especially if Tua is not going to be, because his accuracy was bad today. If his accuracy is not going to be what we're used to, then that's a problem. That being said, they still had a chance to win the game, to try to take the lead. They're driving there, and they just, it looked like, I feel like the play before the fourth down, I thought there was a throw or something that he didn't make, or somebody dropped it or something. I can't remember. Yeah. So, we'll see how they respond next week. They got the primetime game against the Chargers, which is on the road again. I'm not, I don't know if Armstead's going to be back. Even if he is back, like, we'll see. I mean, the Dolphins had a nice stretch where they were playing some bad teams, and now they got to play. This is 2 weeks in a row where they're playing good teams, So we'll see how they respond. I'm not terribly confident in it. I think over the first few months of the season, I think people started to inflate what they really thought the Dolphins are, but really what they are is they're still a work in progress, right? They've got talent on offense, but they have not shown that they can run the ball consistently, and they need to keep working on the offensive line because Terron Armstead goes out and they're, because Tua was getting rushed pretty well the first half. And I thought he actually did a decent job for the most part in the first half, where if they were rushing him, he just held on to the ball and went down. So, yeah.
The positives are the plays were there to be made. The negatives are they didn't make them.
Right.
It's kind of, and that's kind of how professional sports are. The plays are there. You just got to make them. So I'd be more disappointed if I didn't see that, it could work.
Right.
So, but the Chargers defense, I don't think is anywhere near as good as the 49ers defense is. That being said, it just comes down to you got to. You're
on the road for the second week in a row. It's a primetime game,
Yep.
So we'll see.
The good part is about the Chargers is there'll be a lot of Dolphins fans there, as there were today. Yeah. So yeah, overall, I realize I realize what the whole Tua conversation is going to be. Like, I get it. When the Dolphins play like this, it makes their offense look like it's a gimmick. It makes it look like it's, we're just trying to fool people, and if they're not fooled, then we're in trouble. And so yeah, that's the disturbing part. The more disturbing part is to me the defense. San Francisco is going to run the ball. And
I don't know. Their defense is it a function of that they're not getting turnovers this year? Because the previous 2 years they were getting turnovers, or they're just not making play.
I think they're not as good because Flores is not coaching the team anymore. I think that I also think they've had all the secondary is really banged up. I don't think their guys can really cover. Even Xavier Howard's getting beat. So I don't think the guys can. They don't have enough. I don't think they have enough guys that can cover. The pass rush. It's good. It's okay, but it's not winning enough. To make up for the fact that there's everything else going on their defense. I think, but I don't think it's a talent problem. I think they have good enough players. I feel like they should be better than that. But I mean, we've seen these teams, they get players out into space and they do damage, and that's what San Francisco does really well. And the Dolphins seem to struggle with games where we play teams like that. We seem to struggle with it. So yeah, it's disappointing, but look, all is not lost. As I told you, I've been telling you the last time we talked, the Dolphins could lose the next two games. They still have a good opportunity to make the playoffs. So you just gotta, if they could, they play the Chargers and Buffalo. If they win one of those games, they're in good shape.
Yeah.
So, but we've got to do better than we did today. But like I said, there were a lot of things that kind of went wrong. A couple of those reviews on the catches probably could have gone either way. The fumble at the end, I mean, that's just bad luck. I mean, what are you going to do? That's Bosa making a great play. That's what great players do. But anyway, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, they definitely need Armstead back. What worries me about the way McDaniel coaches the team is I just feel like he comes out, no, we're just going to do what we do regardless of who's injured and who's out and what our situation is. And there were a few times there where I just felt like, let's max protect. Let's be a little more conservative than, just trying to attack the defense the entire time. And I think sometimes that can lead to problems that don't necessarily. Once Garoppolo goes out of the game, to me, your whole mindset needs to change.
Yep.
It's like, okay, we don't need to light these guys up. We just need to be consistent, move the ball, try to get in position to score points, take the points that are there, But anyway, yeah, we could go on and on about that. I think, this is one of those things. Like, this is a measuring stick game, just like the next two games, and we'll see how Tua does. Today, didn't answer the bell.
Yeah. I was encouraged. Like I said, I'm really encouraged by that deep throw. That was nice. That actually, it looked good when he threw it, and then it looked good, catching it and running it in. So, hopefully that continues to improve. So
I did like the way that McDaniel used some of the run action on some of the pass plays to make sure that we blocked everybody.
Yeah.
That was good a couple of times. Like, they had Bosa kind of double teamed and, Tua had a clean pocket and there was no one near him. So they did do a good job on some of those plays that I really liked.
Yeah. And I thought Tua, there were a lot of plays where, he took the snap, backed up, and then the rush started to come in and he stepped forward and he could still make throws. And I thought that's an improvement from what I've seen previously, like what I saw last year and the year before. So, it's one game. You don't want to go nuts over, they're playing again next week. We'll see what happens.
Yep. So other places in the NFL, I mean, the Bengals beat the Chiefs for the third time in a row.
Yeah.
Like, that's that's pretty impressive. Like I had my eye on that game. The red zone kept going to it, obviously, and huge throw by Burrow on 3rd and 11 at the end of the game. That was a great completion. It's like you watch the Bengals and you see the Bengals now getting better as the season has gone along, and you see them looking like, oh man, this team's really something. I mean, they held the Chiefs to 24 points. So I think I really like what I see from the Bengals. And listen, we all know Joe Burrow is the real deal. I mean, that guy makes the big throws when you need it. And they had Chase back today, which obviously,
I
really
can't
helps.
wait to see what BS Nick Wright comes up with tomorrow after about this loss. Something about the refs or the Bengals not being really good, or I'm more encouraged about the Chiefs now than I am before the game, or some ridiculous BS, whatever.
Yeah, no, look, and I don't think, and I don't make any definitive statements about it. I think the Bengals are really good.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are really good. I think Buffalo's really good. I think it's funny when people try to get cute and be like, Buffalo, they're kind of overrated, blah blah blah. It's like,
yeah,
all right, whatever. Like you want to live in that world, go ahead. I'm not backing off. I think those 3 teams are pretty special, and I don't think it's much of a debate. The Jets-Vikings game was really, really entertaining.
Yeah, I was watching that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mike White is good. I mean, I think the Jets should be happy about what they got, even though they lost the game. Like, I think, this is how you want the Jets to play. For most of the game, they kind of held the Vikings down.
Yeah.
They really kept the running. They kind of stopped the running game, but then at the end there, the Vikings made a few plays. They got the ball to Jefferson. They got the running game going a little bit. But the Jets still had 2 chances to win at the end of the game. And they weren't able to pull it off, which good for us being Dolphins fans. But I watch the Jets and I just go, man, they just have talent. It's just a talented team. Talented team of young guys. The defense is difficult. It's difficult to move the ball on them. It's difficult to score on them.
Yeah, I don't know how good Mike White is, but I mean, if you just think about it this way, like he's accurate, and he's not somebody. It doesn't seem like Zach Wilson. He's not taking huge risks and screwing stuff up, and it doesn't look like the Jets are going out of their way to protect him, which tells you that they think he can make some plays, which he did. So that's kind of what, I'm not saying he's the long-term solution, but that's kind of what they needed right now. They've got talent, just,
No, they just need a guy to get the ball to the guys that they have. Like, it's not like they, Garrett Wilson, if you watch the game, he's open all the time. If Mike White, and he missed, Mike White missed him 3 or 4 times where it's just like, dude, just hit the guy. Like, so I think, unfortunately, being a Dolphins fan, I'm annoyed that we have to worry about the Jets now. But by the same token, we come on this podcast, we got to tell the truth, man. The Vikings are legit. The Chargers
the
lose
Vikings
another.
Or the Jets are legit.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Both teams are good. Okay?
Both teams are good, but we don't have any confidence that the Vikings are going to beat anybody good in the playoffs, do we?
No. I don't think either team is a threat in the playoffs to really beat anybody. Although if you look at the NFC, the team that the Vikings might play in the first round, I mean, it could be the Washington New York Giants winner, and I mean, I kind of like the Vikings in that game. I'll be honest about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we were saying before the podcast, Washington and the Giants tied. That's about right.
Which, we could talk about that next. I mean, that's basically what they did. It's literally the average bowl watching that game. Taylor Heineke against Daniel Jones. I mean, I just kept, nobody can get more than 7 points ahead. And you knew the game was going to be close. And then both teams have the ball with a chance to win at the end of regulation. Can't get it done. Both teams get the ball at least twice in overtime. Can't get it done. So, that's just that's kind of the way it goes. But the Commanders and the Giants are your 5 and 6 seeds in the NFC, or sorry, 6 and 7 seeds in the NFC right now.
Yeah, at this point. So Lamar Jackson got hurt again. So he got hurt last year. He got hurt this year. And to be honest, like outside of the first few games of the season, he's been fine, but he hasn't been like spectacular. So it's like, yeah, you're going to win games with him, but and that's the question we always had, like, what's the ceiling? And so now he got hurt again. It's kind of like, damn, dude, you should have taken the extension at the beginning of the year.
Oh yeah.
Because now
definitely.
I just feel like they have the Ravens have so much more leverage because it's like, yeah, we can win with you, but you're probably going to get hurt again, and
I mean, there's no way around it. They're either going to have to pay him or give him the franchise tag. It's not really, but the concerning part to me is, the Ravens managed to somehow win today with Tyler Huntley. They were down 9-3. They had to get a touchdown in the last minute of the game in order to win. So it's really, it's one of those things where they probably should have lost. They were outplayed for about 55 minutes of the game, but they managed to win. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it means for Baltimore. It's so hard to tell. Anybody who plays Denver's offense is so bad. I don't. It's amazing to me how Russell Wilson could possibly be this bad. To me, it's the shocker of the NFL season. Like all the rest of the stuff, yeah, whatever. The Eagles are really good. Okay, but
yeah, we knew
to
that.
me, to me, the shocker is just I can't believe Russell Wilson is this bad, and is this the worst trade in NFL history, along with the worst contract?
It might be. I don't know.
Speaking also about competitors for the worst trade in NFL history, Deshaun Watson came back today.
Yeah, and he got booed. So sad. Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, a well-known respecter of women, came back today.
Renowned respecter of women, yes.
Yeah, obviously. And, all I can say is Deshaun Watson looked like he hadn't played in 2 years. That's what he looked like.
Looked like he'd been getting too many. No.
Yeah, right. We're not going to go there. Cleveland managed to win this game based on the strength of their defensive touchdowns. And, the fact that the Houston Texans are the worst team in the league by a mile.
I'm just glad the Dolphins didn't end up trading for Deshaun Watson because I'm glad I don't have to deal with that crap.
Talk about dodging a bullet, my friend. That, thank God we did.
And I feel bad for Browns fans because they didn't ask for this shit.
Exactly right. Yeah,
the organization can go screw themselves, but the fans didn't ask for this crap.
Yeah, they did not. They did not ask for this. So, what looked like it was going to be one of the best games of the day, the Titans and the Eagles just came out and stepped on them.
Yeah.
That was like, you guys don't think we're that good? Okay. We'll show you. And good God, is A.J. Brown, is anybody having a better year than A.J. Brown? Jesus. They've got guys all over him. I'm just watching. I just think it's hysterical. Every week, A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams are just making one-handed catches with guys draped all over them, every single week. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The
Eagles just, it's so weird. Every one of their games, not everyone, but most of them are exactly the same. They come out, they get on top of you in the first half, they just slowly get on top of you, they have a huge lead, and maybe they score once in the second half, but they don't even need to score in the second half. They just run the friggin' clock out. Like, they're just beating everybody that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they're like a college football team who's playing the bottom teams in their conference. They're just, they come out, they get a bunch of points, they have the lead, and then they just basically, they do what they do. And, it's hard to imagine them not getting the one.
If they get the 1 seed, they've got a pretty clear path to at least the NFC Championship game. So we'll see.
Yeah. The Chargers found a way to lose again. I don't think the thing is the Raiders are not a bad team. It's not like, it's not like losing to, Houston or something like that. It's, the Raiders are not a bad team, but It's again, the Chargers are in these close games and they can't get it done at the end. I don't know what we're supposed to do. The Raiders outscore the Chargers 17-7 in the second half.
Yep.
And Brandon Staley's supposed to have a good defense.
Yeah.
Hasn't shown up yet.
Oh, and meanwhile, the Falcons lost again to the Steelers, so they're just clearing the path for the crappy Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the division and get a home playoff game.
I know, and Tampa's playing the Saints on Monday night. I mean, and the way they've played against the Saints, who the hell knows? One thing I can tell you for sure is Tampa's not going to score more than 20 points. I can tell you that. So that's all you have to do to beat them, by the way.
Yeah.
If you score 20 points, I don't think they can catch you.
Yeah, by the way, can we point something out here? And I don't think this has been really pointed out. People tend to, for some reason, people do this sometimes. They gloss over coaching changes. But getting rid of Bruce Arians and having Todd Bowles be your head coach, I mean, Todd Bowles wasn't that great of a head coach with the Jets. So I love how we just sort of gloss that over and think it doesn't matter when obviously it kind of does. Their defense is really good this year and their offense sucks. So the Bucks, I mean. So, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, if Nathaniel Hackett is a really crappy coach in Denver, can we acknowledge that maybe some of the Bucks is, some of it's injuries, obviously. Some of it may be Brady's older, but, I think the coaching has something to do with it.
Yeah, so this was this was entertaining this week. I think I texted you the other day. Bill Simmons opens up his podcast with an entire rant about how he thinks Tom Brady is coming back to the Patriots. He's got Peter Schrager on, and he's got his cousin, the producer, on, and he lays out this whole scenario where it's like, oh, no, Tampa's been terrible, blah, blah, blah. It's like, look at all the stuff Tampa doesn't have. Well, you should come to New England then, because we have nothing.
Yeah.
We have, our defense is good. Well, not really. I understand that New England thinks their defense is good. They're really good against bad teams. Congratulations, okay? No, their defense isn't good. They don't have good offensive weapons. Don't tell me about their running game. Get the hell out of here. We watched them play against Buffalo. We saw what they are. So I don't think the idea you're going to bring Tom Brady in and he's going to fix it. The reason that he left was because this is what your team was.
Yeah.
So do I think, now listen, Brady can come back if he wants to. I don't care if Brady comes back. It makes no difference to me. I'm not saying, I think, I'm not sure what else he can do in football, but if he wants to come back, I don't think there's any chance it's going to be with the Patriots, for God's sakes.
Yeah. I mean, he might leave the Buccaneers, but, it's going to be with some team that's got, really good receivers and just a lot of offensive talent. He's not going to go to somewhere that just doesn't have, why. At this age, he can't elevate a team that doesn't have, a lot of good pieces around him. So,
right.
Come on.
And we can see it. I mean, Tampa still has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette. It's not like he's on some rinky-dink team. They have players. I realize the offensive line has not been great. I get it. But when you watch the YouTube clips, Brady's just not playing well.
Yeah.
This isn't even a discussion. I don't know how they won that Seattle game. If that game had not been in Germany, I don't think they're winning that game. I mean, they're 5-6, and they really have no business being 5-6.
And they lost to Cleveland. I mean,
it's kind of a joke. Let's be honest. That's what it is. It's kind of a joke. All right. So yeah, we got just amazing 2 games. Colts Cowboys tonight, and then the Bucks the Saints tomorrow night. I mean, I'm sure we'll be tuned in and watching every play, intently.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think you could drag me to that. They could be, as Colin Cowherd would say, they could be playing that in my backyard. I would just close the curtains.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be watching any of that. So any other NFL thoughts?
No. I mean, we'll see what the Dolphins do next week, and things are kind of things are starting to really take shape, who the the good teams are and who the teams that are just sort of hanging around. There's a lot of teams that are just kind of hanging around, trying to see if they can
Buffalo,
get in the playoffs.
Buffalo's back in the 1 seed because of the Chiefs' loss today. So,
okay.
So that's an interesting thing to watch as far as playoff goes. So that's why it was a really rough loss for the Dolphins. They still had a chance to be in the running for the 1 seed, and they lost that game. But the 49ers now have the 3 seed in the NFC, and my Seattle Seahawks are hanging in there. I said they were legit, and they're trying to prove me wrong, but all right. So that's it for NFL.
Yeah.
Got a stupid Dr. Pepper ad going all of a sudden. Anywho, so let's you ready to talk about some college football?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this was I've been really thinking about this the past week or so because everyone's annoying me. All the people in the sports media that are whining about the college football rankings, it just drives me absolutely insane. I'm so tired of everyone complaining about, well, this team shouldn't get in and this team should get in and all of the arguments and all that stuff. So for a quick recap, it started out this going into this weekend. We had Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, TCU at 3, USC at 4, Ohio State at 5, Alabama 6. Okay, USC gets basically run out of the building against Utah. They took a 14-point lead, and then once Caleb Williams got hurt, that basically ended their shot there. And but I was really impressed with Utah. They stuck to their guns and basically physically dominated them. And I think they started counting. I think USC had 30 missed tackles in the game. I mean, it was horrible defense.
Yeah.
I mean, I was saying to our father, before the game, he asked me, who do I think is going to win? I said, I don't know. USC's defense is so bad, like anything could happen in this game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened, And then the TCU Kansas State game, fantastic game. TCU, it's TCU's whole season in a microcosm. You know what I mean? They're playing okay. They fall behind. They make a bunch of mistakes. They find a way to come back. They're right there at the end to win it. And this one, they managed to lose it in overtime because they couldn't get the ball over the goal line twice when they had it at the 1. And, so Kansas State got a field goal in overtime to beat them, which, honestly, it didn't. Honestly, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think any of those games. That was the only thing that kind of sucked about only having a 4-team playoff in the situation we were in yesterday is that none of those games mattered. Like, it was just kind of what order are the teams going to be in, and that's the only thing that matters. So, Georgia ran out with the game against LSU. They did get a lot of points and yards thrown on them, but Georgia was, they were in control. They were up 35-10 at halftime, and kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. Michigan did what they always do. They played around with the team for a half, got into the third quarter, and then kind of took it over. And most interesting game, but surprisingly, was Clemson finally switching quarterbacks and just absolutely destroying North Carolina yesterday. Which it just
makes you just go, dude, what were you guys doing the past 2 years?
Yeah. Well, they didn't have Cade Klubnik last year.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But it's just once they lost the Notre Dame game, to me that was like easy. It was easy. Just switch to Klubnik, and if they'd have done it, by the way, they'd probably be in the playoff today.
Right.
Like they probably, if they beat South Carolina, they probably are in. Because at least they would have won their conference.
Right.
So that's where we stood. So today the rankings finally came out, and we've got Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, still holding at 3, and then they moved Ohio State up to 4. Now,
Right.
Look, we've been saying this for a while now. Look, the committee gets it right every single year. This is the 9th year in a row. The committee has gotten the top 4 right. Even when I've had complaints about it, okay? I didn't like the first year when they moved TCU out of it, but they were right. Ohio State went and won the national championship. TCU was not going to do that in 2014, by the way.
Yeah. In fact, I was looking, I pulled up and I was looking through the Final Four every year. And the only year where I really the TCU Baylor thing, what happened that year? Was it a split conference? Because they didn't have a conference championship game. Was it a split
They didn't have a conference championship game, so they had the same number of – they both had one loss. TCU lost to Baylor. TCU was way ahead in the first half. Baylor made a furious comeback and managed to win the game. They had TCU ahead of Baylor the entire season, which made everybody mad because, they beat them. They shouldn't be ahead of them. Even though when you watch the breadth of the season – I thought TCU was a better team, and they were really the better team in that game.
Right.
And then Ohio State beat Wisconsin 59-0 in their conference championship game. So they put Ohio State in at 4, which bothered me at the time because I thought it was completely unfair. Ohio State had gotten blown out by Purdue earlier in the season. I just thought it was completely unfair or not Purdue, I think it was Virginia Tech. And
right.
It really upset me that they did that. But Ohio State went on, beat Alabama, beat Oregon, and won the whole thing. So there wasn't really it's like it was hard to make an argument against it. So yeah, the committee gets it right every single year, guys. I don't like the attitude that everybody has. Like Danny Cannell continues to call the committee a joke every week. This is a joke. It's like, dude, it's not a joke, man. You continuing to say that is a joke. So
yeah, well, let me read through because I got this pulled up. I'll read through the Final Four every year. So for every year of the playoffs. So for the 2014 season, so you had Bama 12-1, Oregon 12-1, Florida State 13-0, Ohio State 12-1, and then obviously Baylor and TCU were left out. We were just discussing that. So that's the only year where I was kind of like, And Ohio State did end up winning, so, I mean, I guess it worked out. Then the second year, 2015, Clemson was 13-0, Bama was 12-1, Michigan State was 12-1, and Oklahoma was 11-1. That year was pretty clear. I mean, those teams, they all won their conferences. Stanford was on the outside looking in. They were 11-2. So that year, they got it right. The next year, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Washington. And I guess Ohio State didn't win the conference that year, but they had one fewer loss than Penn State. So I guess they got in. Let's see, 2017, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Bama. Some people, I think, at the time were upset that they put two SEC teams in, but Bama was really good that year, obviously. Let's see, 2018, Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I can understand some people having a problem with Notre Dame, especially given the fact that they get into the playoff and then they get crushed. But, they were 12-0. And then let's see, 2019 was the LSU year. LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma. And LSU just kicked the crap out of everybody. And then let's see, 2020 was the COVID year, which is kind of weird. You had Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And then let's see, last year, Bama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati. And then, of course, this year, which we were just discussing. I mean, I was looking through that, and I'm like, there's different things where you could sort of split hairs on stuff, and you could sort of say, well, I think this team should have been in. And it's like, you may have an argument there, but I've got a pretty good argument on the other side. And this thing is a completely subjective ranking. So at the end of the day, I think they get it right every year. Like, you can only pick 4 teams, and really every year there's only like 2, maybe 3 teams that can win the national championship. This year, it may only be like 2.
Right.
I mean, like TCU's not, and Ohio State has been kind of, you've been saying they're a fraud all year long, and they seem to be kind of a fraud against Michigan. So, But what you're saying about, yeah, that's what we were texting about earlier today. Like, they get it right every year. And a lot of the people that are complaining, they just complain to complain. I mean, literally, it's the same people that complain every year. They were complaining about the BCS system, too. I mean, it's literally the same thing every year. And they're never open to any other arguments. They just basically, they pick and choose a few things, and then they go, well, it should have been this way because of this. And it's like, well, what about all this other stuff? They don't consider that. They just pick and choose a few details, and they go, well, they should have done it this way because of this. And
yeah, so I think Rhys Davis on ESPN, I think, did a really good job today of kind of, pointing out all the hypocrisies and things that everybody's saying, right? So the complaints about the committee are, well, what's the criteria? And how do we know how much each criteria is weighted? And how is, whatever? And it's like, you guys, everybody complained about the BCS, right? You guys didn't like the formula. They kept changing the formula. They kept modifying it to try to make it better for everybody. You didn't like it, right? So we got rid of it. And now you guys all want it back. You want a formula again. It's like, so wait a minute. Like, why do we have the committee then? If all you guys want is a formula, then why do we have the committee? Like, I'm just confused. And the arguments that people make, like, well, they're not football people. These are athletic directors who probably coached football at some point. Like, yeah. They're not idiots, and they pointed this out. Rhys Davis said this too. They act like these people don't watch the games. They don't know what they're talking about. These people all watch the games.
Some of the people complaining don't watch the games. Exactly, I know Danny Cannell probably watches all the games. But some of these writers, they don't watch all the games. They just basically they always root for the underdog. So it's the same people that were whining last year about Cincinnati's not going to get in, and they ended up getting in. So
yeah, and it was the same thing this year about TCU. Like, until TCU got into the top 4, well, you're not respecting them. They're not getting enough respect. Blah 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 blah. And it was just like, I read this one article. I think it was on ESPN.com, where they were like, we want TCU in because do you really want teams who just blow everyone out? Is that what you want? We want a team that plays close games. And it's just like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like this isn't like, this isn't like, oh, just pick out your own team. This isn't a deli. This isn't just give me a little bit of this and I would like this and I would like this. This isn't a playground. Like, guys, this is legit.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I think that the committee actually does a really good job of balancing who the best teams are, and then they also factor in most deserving. So, for instance, last year, I didn't really think Cincinnati was one of the 4 best teams in the country, but you looked at the other choices. Like, I'm looking at this table. I'm on Wikipedia, so they're showing the different things. So from last year, you had Baylor at 11-2, Utah at 10-3, and Pittsburgh at 11-2. Cincinnati was undefeated. So, and I think Notre Dame was 11-1. So, if you looked at the other options, Cincinnati was undefeated. They won their conference. It's like, okay, based on, they're kind of most deserving. These other teams, while maybe you could argue they're better, and maybe you've watched them and you think they're better, they sort of screwed up. They stumbled a few times during the year, and we're not going to award them a spot in the playoff over this team that went undefeated and kind of left no doubt that they were, they had a really good year. So it just, I think if you look at every year, I think they've really done a good job of balancing that out. And also just kind of, I really do think they're trying to find the 4 best teams, although some years it doesn't work out that way. Like this year, it didn't really work out that way outside of Georgia and Michigan, right? The other teams, you're kind of looking at TCU like, okay, they keep winning, but God, this is really shaky. They're playing with fire like every week. They're getting down by all these huge margins, and they're managing to come back. So, and now I find it kind of funny that, it's kind of weird, but people are complaining about Ohio State. They're like, well, why should they get in? They just got, absolutely annihilated in that game against
Michigan.
And it's like, okay, fine. So wait a minute. So, but at the same time, you're saying, I don't care if TCU loses. You're now saying, well, Ohio State lost, so they should be out. So, like, what? It's just, there's right. A lot of hypocrisy, and a lot of it is just a cottage industry of complaining that's not really based on necessarily facts or sound arguments. It's just, we're complaining to complain because we want to just keep complaining. And once they move to a 12-team playoff, They're going to complain about the 13th and 14th best team, and they're going to complain about how the different rankings shake out. So it's just, it is what it is. It's going to keep happening with college football.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, here's the thing that bothers me. Okay. This is the thing that bothers me the most right now as we're talking about this, right? Everybody's like, Alabama has no chance. They can't be in because they have 2 losses. And it's like, okay, so let me see if I understand this, right? You guys don't like Ohio State backing into the playoff, right? The people aren't happy that this happened because they lost that game. You don't like them getting in. Oh, but Alabama has 2 losses, so we can't let them in at all. So let me just understand this. Alabama's strength of schedule is significantly better. Alabama and Tennessee's strength of schedule is significantly better than the top 4 teams that got in. Okay? So we're killing Ohio State, because they got blown out by Michigan. Meanwhile, Alabama, we're like, but their wins aren't good enough. It's like, yeah, but look at the schedule Alabama played, right? They played Texas, they played Mississippi State, they played Ole Miss, they played Tennessee, they played LSU. Like, what bothers me is that Ohio State gets to basically go, yeah, all right, we'll play this kind of average game against Notre Dame, and we'll beat Penn State, who everybody thinks is good because Penn State has beaten all these Big Ten teams, right? And so Ohio State will get in when they really didn't play any tough games. They weren't really challenged by anybody, because none of the teams in their conference are very good. But Alabama plays these 5 really tough games. They win some, they lose some, right? Yeah, they had these tough battles. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, but they really struggled with, Texas and whatever. It's like, yeah, did you watch TCU play Texas? It wasn't like TCU was, significantly better than them. So it just bothers me, the imbalance of schedule where and then we go, oh, well, they lost twice, acting like Alabama's
and that's
not
why
really good.
This is a challenge it's a challenge for the committee to rank 4 teams. That's why I'm saying I feel like they do a really good job considering the talent imbalance and the imbalance in the scheduling between the conferences in trying to pick who's the best teams are and who are the most deserving based on the year that they had. So and by the way, people complaining about that, Alabama didn't get in.
Right.
So, and by the way, I can understand that argument that you could say Alabama's better than Ohio State. I kind of think they are. But, they had the 2 losses, and so Ohio State's a little bit more deserving, even though we could argue about the scheduling imbalance and whatever else.
Yeah, no, I listen, I think they got it exactly right. I think Ohio State should be in. I'm not saying, I'm not one of these people going Alabama should be in. I just think it's just kind of ridiculous the way that this is talked about. As if Alabama lost 2 times, so they're just not. It's just like, really? Like that's how blatant, that's how just blunt we're going to be about this. Like we're not going to evaluate. Oh, there's no nuance,
and it's totally inconsistent too. Because say Cincinnati was 12-1 last year, they won the conference, but they lost at some point during the year. Everyone was like, oh, they should still get in. Like, yeah, but they have 1 loss, and then it's like, it just. It just devolves into it. So I just thought I had texted you this morning. I thought it was good for us to talk about this because it's like the 14 playoff is done after next season. So it's kind of a good point to just talk about like, hey, you know what? They actually did a really good job. Yeah. They've done a really good job over the 9-10 years of this playoff.
Absolutely. So all right. So I want to ask you one question. I want to talk about something, and then I will preview the playoff games. So are you happy that there's a 12? Do you like that there's going to be a 12-team playoff? And do you think it does a better job at us getting the champion right?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to be ranking teams. Is it just going to be top? I don't understand it because they're saying what was it? 4, they're saying 6.
Okay, so what I'm seeing, I'm a little confused too. But what I have seen so far is they're going to take the top 4 conference champions, the 4 highest ranked conference champions, and they are going to get a bye in the first round. And then everybody else, they seem to keep in, the rest of the 12, 5 through 12. They seem to keep in that order. What I'm confused about, I thought it makes sense to me that it would be the top 6 teams would be the conference champions. And they would all get home games. Right, the top 4 would have a bye, right? But at the other 5 through 12 teams, they're going to get the higher seeds will get a home game. So I thought it would just be the top 6 conference champions ranked. But so what I've seen and what they're doing so far is they're taking the top 4 conference champions and then ranking everybody else after that, 5 through 12, in the order that they're in. They put because Tulane was the 6th best conference champion, so the one team outside the Power 5 that won their conference, they were 12. So, but I don't know how that's going to work going forward. They don't have that worked out yet. But
I don't understand how they're going to be doing rankings every week. I'm confused. So it's hard for me.
What do you mean? They're going to do rankings every week just like they do now. They're just going to do 1 through 12 straight up. They're not going to worry about, because they don't have, but the final rankings, right, it'll be the top 4 teams will be the best 4 conference champions. So this year, the only difference would be, you'd have, Georgia and Michigan, obviously they won their conference. And then it would be like Clemson would be 3, and then Utah would be 4th, or Clemson would be 3, and either Utah, I think it's Kansas State. Kansas State would be 4th, and then Utah would be, the 5th conference champion, and then Tulane. So it's just going to be a little bit weird, because if some team like Kansas State wins the conference championship games now are going to be gigantic.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I didn't let you answer my question, but go ahead.
So, well, see, that's why I was asking about that, because that's confusing, because, right now they, when they start doing the playoff rankings in the middle of the year, everything builds up week after week after week till the final ranking, right?
Right.
And the final ranking has obviously a very strong connection to all the previous rankings, because, a lot of times it's pretty close to what it was. Like last week, I mean, Michigan and Georgia were in the same spots,
Right.
Was TCU in the same? Was TCU 3 or 4 last?
No, last year.
Last week. I'm sorry.
Oh, last week. Yeah, last week the top 3 were the same. The only difference is Ohio State replaced USC.
Well, see, my point is everything's building toward that. But if we're going to do some weird thing where they're going to do the rankings like they've been doing them every week, but then the final one is we're going to take the 4 highest ranked conference champions, which may not be 1 through 4.
They're still going to rank. No. The committee will still rank the teams 1 through 12 like they normally would. Where they play and all of that, that's a separate issue.
Oh.
They're still going to rank them 1 through 12, but where they go and what games they play in, that's going to be different, because it's not going to be all 12 of the teams that they ranked, because one team will be from a group of 5 conference, right? So they probably won't be. They're not usually. Sometimes they are in the top 12, right? Cincinnati was last year, but a lot of times they aren't. So
right. Yeah. I mean, look. I think the 4-team playoff is perfect, and I've said that many times before. And but I don't want to go off on a tangent about I think they should just leave it alone. Even though I think that's what they should do ideally. But we don't live in an ideal world, so they're not going to do that. I basically knew once they did 4 teams, they're going to keep expanding it. So I've been really happy with the 4 teams and the 12 team. I'm not saying it's going to be bad. Okay, I think we're going to get we're going to get more games. They're going to be good games. We're going to get matchups that we're not used to seeing from teams in different parts of the country playing each other, which I think is all good. But I just think there's something's going to be lost, obviously. Because it's just when you're letting more people in, it's not as exclusive. So every game, especially toward the end of the year, doesn't matter as much. It's not that they don't matter at all. This year, was it last week or the week before? I was watching, last week. I was watching Florida play Florida State. That had no playoff implications whatsoever. Packed stadium, everybody was into it. Really exciting game, really fun to watch. That's still going to be like Michigan and Ohio State. It's not going to not mean anything anymore. Like it's still going to be a really big deal, but it may not carry as much import as it has the past 9 years, because there's so few spots to get in. So it just kind of there's pros and cons with everything. I think the good is going to be really good. The bad of it is it just is what it is, and we kind of got to deal with it. I just, we've talked about this before. I'm just annoyed with the whole, well, you got to guarantee a spot for the conference champions. Do you? I mean, because sometimes, like I said, it's like Kansas State won. You have to put them in now? Like, Kansas State has like 4 losses. Right?
Yeah, I think, I'm with you. I mean, look, I think the 4 teams is fine. I think it's just fine the way it is. But I realize because of money, that's, different.
Right.
It's confusing to me why college football has taken this long to catch on to, well, let's have more games. We can make more money.
Yeah.
I mean, hello? Like,
right.
Have you been watching anything that's been going on in sports for how long? But I heard Dan Wetzel had an interesting comparison. He's like, could you imagine if the NFL sold the AFC Championship game to, like, the tourism board of San Antonio and they got half the money?
Yeah.
And they had to put it on at a certain time on a certain day. Like, no one would do this. It makes absolutely no sense. But
yeah,
the people in charge of these bowls still have power, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I think I like the 12-team playoff. I like this structure because, listen, are we letting some teams in that probably shouldn't be in? Sure. But when you're letting 12 teams in, it's like, oh, well, it's fine. Like Ryan Russillo is, I don't like guaranteeing a spot to a group of 5, somebody that's outside the Power 5. I think that's ridiculous. It's like, yeah, I get it, but they're going to get destroyed in the first game anyway. Like, it doesn't really, it doesn't seriously damage the who wins the championship. And so that's kind of my thing on the 12 team.
I think my main point that I was I guess I didn't state this as perfectly earlier, but I guess the main point I'm trying to make is the selection show at the end of the season after the Sunday after the conference championships becomes like the NCAA men's basketball tournament selection show, right? Where it's almost a little bit divorced from the previous rankings you've been doing, which I kind of don't like because, like I said, it builds every week and it creates drama and it creates interest and it pisses some people off. It creates arguments, and that's part of what's made college football so interesting and so much different from all the other sports. So,
yeah, but the arguments aren't going to go away.
No, they're not. They'll still be, like I said, there's pros and cons. It'll still be really good. There's some things that'll get lost, but we'll kind of move forward.
Because now people are going to fight for like cats and dogs for those 6 at-large spots. And it's going to be, but, we're going to be debating, Ole Miss coming close to beating Alabama versus, it's going to get kind of ridiculous. But listen, I'm here for it. I think it's good. I want more games in college football. It's a great sport. I love the fact that we're going to get an extra weekend of it. We're going to get matchups that we don't normally see. The fact that the four teams on a bye kind of helps protect us from not having as many blowouts. It does kind of, so I feel like it served its purpose. I feel like 12 is going to go to 16 real fast. Yeah. Because if we're going to give teams games on campus and you're excluding the top 4 teams from those games, I'm pretty sure that's going to be an incentive to try to get that changed. But yeah, I don't think it has any bearing on who wins the championship. I don't think this makes it easier for anybody. I just think, it's kind of like we're patting teams. It's kind of like you said, Clark, it's like the basketball tournament. We're going to pat 4 or 5 teams on the head and go, oh yeah, we'll let you in. Yeah, you're good enough. When they're not.
No, you're not.
They're not. Like, I like Cincinnati. They weren't good enough to be in the top 4. I like TCU. They're not really good. But this year, it's like you said, who are you going to put in? Tell me. Who is it? Who are you going to put in? Because there aren't that many. This is the funniest part, is that we're having a hard time getting to 4 candidates, and we're going to put 12 in. So go figure. Anyway,
we'll just, for example, let's put it like this year, if we were to have a 12-team playoff. Let's see, Clemson won their conference, right?
Yep.
So so Georgia and Michigan, they're the 2 highest. They would be like the 2 highest ranked ones, right?
Yep.
Then I guess Clemson, and then Utah and Kansas State.
Well, yeah, Utah and Kansas State would be 3 and 4.
Oh, see that? That's where it just like, oh God, really? Like it just kind of.
Yeah, if we have upsets, that's the thing. If we have upsets in conference championship games, it kind of takes away a spot because TCU's getting an at-large spot. USC's getting an at-large spot.
Well, but hopefully what ends up happening is, and I think you've talked about this before, hopefully what ends up happening is if winning your conference carries that much significance, the losses you have outside of conference don't matter in terms of conference play, in terms of getting into the conference championship game. So
right.
I would hope that teams would be like, oh, let's schedule some out-of-conference stuff. Just because people will watch. Like, they'll get insane. Like, if you can get teams from different, like team from the SEC playing a team from the Big Ten, or a Big 12 team playing a Big Ten team, or, different things like that. And especially teams from different regions of the country playing each other, whether it's a neutral site or an on-campus game or what. Like, we need more of that. So hopefully that is sort of a side effect of moving to 12 teams. So we'll see.
I mean, listen, the pitfalls are, we've talked about this. One of the real pitfalls is this: the SEC might just wipe the floor with everybody. That kind of worries. That kind of worries me. Everybody's going to be mad if the last 4 teams for the semifinals are all SEC teams. It's gonna really upset people. But I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So let's preview the game. So we've got New Year's Eve, which I don't know how college football has not learned what the hell is going on with television at this point. I don't get it. All the money comes from television. Why are you putting your biggest games on New Year's Eve? Like, I know it's a Saturday this year. I get it. But are you smoking crack? What's wrong with you? So TCU is playing Michigan in the
wait a minute. January 1st, they don't want to go up against the NFL.
No, I'm not saying put them on the 1st. I'm just saying put them on a day when everybody's going to watch. That's all. Put them on Friday. Put them on, I don't care what day, but you can't put them on New Year's Eve.
I think people are, that federally they're observing the New Year's Day on the 2nd because the 2nd is a Monday.
Right.
So you're saying maybe put it on a Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
The championship game is on a Monday.
Well, but I mean, they lucked out this year because it is on a Saturday. The New Year's Eve is a Saturday, so.
Yeah, but I still don't think you're going to get the audience that you want. But regardless, anyway, so TCU's playing Michigan at 4 o'clock in the Fiesta Bowl out in Arizona, and then at 8 o'clock, Ohio State's playing Georgia. Early line, Georgia is favored by Ohio State over 6.5, and Michigan is favored over TCU by 9.5. So what do you think what's your early lean on those games?
Is Blake Corum going to be coming back for Michigan?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, well, again, if they can, because I'm trying to think of, remember the game last night with Kansas State and TCU. I mean, Deuce Vaughn was kind of running all over the place. So, I mean, Michigan's got other running backs, can't they? I mean, if they can, be good on the line of scrimmage, then I would think they could run the ball, because I don't think they're going to get away with having J.J. McCarthy throwing a bunch, again. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for TCU to win this game, they've got to throw the ball early and they got to score early. They have the receivers to do it. One of their best receiver, Johnston or whatever, that guy is a stud. So I think for TCU has got to get the lead and get the game somewhat in their control. They cannot fall behind by double digits against Michigan because they'll never get the ball enough to catch up. And I just think Michigan is the more physically dominant team. They'll figure out how to run the ball at some point during the game, which is what they're going to do. And if they're winning both lines of scrimmage, it's just going to be really hard for TCU. They're going to have to make big plays throwing the ball because I don't think they're going to be able to sustain drives down the field against Michigan's defense. I think this one, this one could look a lot like a lot of Michigan's games. Close at halftime, and then they run away with it in the second half.
Right. Yeah, Blake Corum is expected to miss the rest of the season because he had surgery.
Yep.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much the rest of the year. We'll see. I mean, it's a few weeks away, so I don't know what kind of surgery he had. If he just had cartilage removed or something, I don't know. So,
yeah. Georgia, Ohio State. I mean, look, I think honestly, I think for Ohio State, they need to get their guys on offense back healthy. They need to get Jackson Smith and Jigba. They need to get Travion Henderson, the running back. They need to have all of their offensive weapons to have a chance in this game. You've seen that Georgia can be thrown. You can get yards. You can throw the ball on them a little bit. You can see that from the way they've played this year. The problem is I just don't think Ohio State's defense can stop anybody. I don't think they're going to be able to slow down Georgia, and Georgia just has – I mean, they got tight ends going crazy. They got running backs. And if you watch that game against LSU, as soon as Georgia felt threatened, they absolutely destroyed them on offense. 35 points in the first half. So that's what worries me about that game. It's funny. I think TCU has a better chance of hanging in there against Michigan than Ohio State hanging in there against Georgia.
Yeah, I was just thinking of this, like the national championship game matchup that probably college football wants is probably Ohio State, Michigan. Because you've never really had that where they're literally playing for the national championship, and those are two of the biggest brands in sports, really, Ohio State and Michigan. So I don't really think it's going to happen, though. I don't think both those teams can win the game. I don't think Michigan might win, but then Ohio State will probably lose. I mean, I just don't think. I mean, Ohio State's got to prove that they can. If someone pushes them around, they got to prove that they can kind of push back, and I don't really see it. They haven't really shown anything.
What I will say is the thing they have going in their favor is everyone's going to say Ohio State's no good for the next month.
True.
Everybody's going to be telling them that they don't deserve to be in the playoff. They have no chance. And, Georgia's going to stomp them and all of this stuff. So that could lead to a very interesting game. The game is in Atlanta, by the way.
Right. So which is like a home game for Georgia.
Right. It's going to be tough that's a pretty tough spot to be in. Even though I think Ohio State could come out early and play inspired, I just don't see it. I think this is a pretty clear Georgia-Michigan final, and I think it'll be pretty interesting. Some of the rest of the games, it's kind of funny. Like, it's amazing how far bowl games have fallen off, because I think most of these bowl games, most of the good players, especially if they're going to the NFL, are probably not going to play.
Yeah.
So they were talking about that earlier on the preview show, like Alabama, Kansas State, like they don't even have a line for the game yet because they don't think anybody on Alabama's team is going to play. They think they're all going to take it off. And, USC is playing Tulane. USC is only favored by 1.5 because I think Caleb Williams has the hamstring. I don't think they think he's going to play. He's not going to the NFL, but they don't think he's going to play. And if that's the case, then
yeah, forget it.
How do you pick that game? So, look, I'll just give you, the matchups that intrigued me. I mean, I was kind of intrigued by Penn State against Utah in the Rose Bowl. I always think that's kind of an interesting game. They tend to get some relatively good teams in there. I would like to see Kansas State play Alabama, but I don't know that we're really going to get
if they were actually playing, yeah, I think that would be interesting.
Right. Tennessee Clemson is playing in the Orange Bowl. Obviously Tennessee's going to have their backup quarterback. So, but I do think that's an interesting game just to see what happens. Tennessee is obviously not what they were, but they do get 4 weeks to kind of get ready.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. And I'm sure Clemson will be playing Cade Klubnik at quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know. Texas is playing Washington. I think that's kind of cool just to watch both quarterbacks. I think that there's a little bit of star power in that game. Oregon's playing North Carolina in the Holiday Bowl. Both those teams like to score and don't really like to stop anybody. So that might be an entertaining game. But honestly, it's really kind of confusing as to why we do this with all these bowl games when it's just not the same anymore. Nick Saban was saying on TV last night, he's like, well, we've kind of decided that the bowl games aren't really that important, so we might as well just expand the playoff.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think he's got a good point, because at least if you're in the top 12, right, your guys will probably show up to play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good thing. I mean, So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, my overall take hasn't changed. I think Georgia's the best team all around, and I think they're going to make it really difficult for whoever they have to play.
Right.
And I don't know that, there's no great team this year. I think Georgia's about as close as it's going to get. And I just think Georgia's just kind of on a mission, and it'd be really fascinating to see if they can win back-to-back, because surprisingly enough, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, no.
Like Alabama did it in 2011, 2012. USC did it in like 03, 04. Nebraska did it in 94, 95. About once a decade it happens. It's not something that happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I just think, like, especially if Georgia wins, I mean, Stetson Bennett, he, like, walked on.
Yep.
Right? And he was like, when he was a kid, he wanted to play at Georgia. And then he walks on and he wins and he could win two. Like, that's crazy.
Well, it's even longer now. He walked on, then he had to go to a junior college, played there, came back. Like, it's a crazy story. And then he wasn't supposed to be the quarterback last year, and then JT Daniels gets hurt, and then it's insane.
Yeah.
It's a crazy story.
That's a sports movie right there. That's,
Yeah. It would be incredible for him. And he's 25 years old, so it just goes to show, which, everybody in college now is 25 because, everybody, it's funny. Everybody got that red shirt year. And then the COVID year, they basically said you can just have an extra year of eligibility if you want. So it's insane. So anyway, looking forward to it. I'm sad that the college football season is kind of over. This is kind of a dead.
But it was a good season. We had some really
period,
good. I mean,
it was a lot of
Bama
fun.
games where they lost to LSU and Tennessee, and then some of the Big 12 stuff and some of the Pac-12 stuff. I mean, some really good games.
Yep. All right. So before we get out of here, let's talk a little World Cup. The U.S. got eliminated on Monday. They got eliminated playing the Netherlands, and. I mean, listen, overall, I'm happy with where the United States team is at. Like, I just think they're really talented. They're really young. I mean, this is in my lifetime the most talented team I've ever seen that we've had. I also think to be this talented and to be as young as they are, average age is 25, which I think is, fantastic. They played hard. They got beat by a better team. You could see obviously why they were a better team. And I think this really sets us up nicely for all these guys are going to be in their prime. And if we can add a few more young guys in their prime when the World Cup comes to the United States in 2026.
Yeah.
So I think this is overall, I think this is a great place to be. Now, the game itself, I was watching the game, and I kind of had this confirmed by watching some of the analysis afterwards. About halfway through the first half. Now, first of all, we gave up the goal. I'm like, with all these games, I'm like, you got to get through the first 15, 20 minutes without giving up a goal. We couldn't do that. Pulisic had a really good chance early. He wasn't able to connect on it, and we gave up a goal. And then about halfway through the first half, I thought, okay, why do we have the ball so much? I thought, we've got the ball way too much. I'm like, this must be on purpose. Like, it kind of early, I was like, oh, good, we're possessing the ball. Good. All right. Well, let's see what we can do. And then I've kind of figured it out after the goal. I was kind of like, okay, the Netherlands is doing this on purpose. Like, they're literally just like, oh, we'll let them have the ball because they can't do anything with it. They're not going to be able to create from, and by the way, we're going to specifically target guys who we know can create, and we're going to make sure we, pay attention to them to make these other guys have to do stuff.
Right.
And the way we gave up those goals by not getting back on defense, just really lazy play.
The second or the third one, I mean, the goalie for the U.S. was like, and you watch the play, I mean, they had like two guys on one Netherlands guy, and then another guy was behind him, and then they kicked it to him and he scored. And it was like, it just seemed like there were a couple defensive lapses. And by the way, the only goal that the U.S. had in the match was lucky. I mean, they kicked it in and it just sort of bounced off the guy and bounced. It was like a hockey goal. I mean, so, to me, it just felt like for the whole tournament, the U.S. had a lot of opportunities and they didn't convert enough of them. Going into the match yesterday, they had scored 2 goals.
Right.
Yeah, over the entire tournament, and it just felt like against Wales they should have scored maybe 1 more goal.
Right.
And it felt like England. England's really good. They played them to a draw. Whatever. But then the game against Iran, it felt like they had a couple other chances where they should have scored more. So I don't know if that's a function of they need more experience or do they need, and I think Greg Berhalter said that they need an elite striker. And I don't know, they got Pulisic, but they need more maybe because it just felt
what they need is the big guy. Like if you watch England, they have Harry Kane. They need the big guy who you can get the ball in the middle of the field and he can hold up the ball against defenders when they're on his back, and then he can get into the box and score. Yeah. That's what we don't have. We don't have – all our guys are relatively small. We don't have that one big guy who's just a, go get the goal guy. And we don't have that. We have elite midfielders. We have really good wings, but we don't have the superstar. So we're trying to make up for it in other ways, which is, by the way, which they're doing a great job of doing that. The game plan that they had against the Netherlands, the game plan they had against England, that's what they should have been doing against the Netherlands. They should have tried to keep the game in front of them. We're going to take the chances that are there. But the Netherlands, by letting us have the ball, they made us push guys forward. They made us think, oh, well, let's go after this. So we came out really aggressive against the Netherlands, and it kind of came back to bite us. And, you could see that was kind of a mistake that a young team and a young coach would, less experienced team and coach would make. And so, but that being said, again, like I said, if Pulisic had scored that goal in the first few minutes, the whole thing changes. So I'm not necessarily going to say it was wrong, but what I will say is they needed to shore up the rest of the team before they tried to do that, because I think that from what the analysis I was hearing is that's basically the Netherlands' only move. Like that's basically the way that they have to play in order to win, and we kind of played into their hands. Yeah, if we just kept back on defense a little bit better and just tried to, move the ball up the field when we could, and plus the United States gave the ball away so much. They gave it away in the middle of the field a bunch of times, and I knew that with watching the first 3 group games, I knew that was going to come back to bite us, and it did. Yeah.
So, but I mean, good World Cup. They got out of the group stage, and then we'll see. We'll see the next 4 years. They get better, and then hopefully in the next World Cup here, maybe they can get farther.
But yeah, what I didn't like was I didn't like people complaining that this team they should have gotten farther. This is not a big deal. They should have gotten farther than this. No, let me explain something to you people. No, this is different. We have 11 guys on this team that are from the best 5 leagues in the world: England, Spain, Italy, France, Germany. We have 11 players who play in those leagues. Okay? Yeah. This is completely different than any other team we've had. It used to be we'd have 1, maybe 2, and everybody else played in the MLS or whatever. That's not the case now. Half of our team plays in the best leagues in the world. Christian Pulisic plays on Chelsea, one of the best teams in the world, and he's one of the best players on that team. This is completely different. This is much, much better than it used to be. Now we need to get better. We need to use the next 4 years to start kicking some butt in our region, and dominate these games instead of just winning. Right. We need to figure this out, and we certainly can. But this is a success. Anybody complaining that it's not that good, the U.S. they didn't score enough, and blah blah blah. Yeah, you're right. They didn't score enough, but this is a success. There's no world that exists where this is not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and then you watch some of these other teams. There's a different, like France today. They've beaten Poland. Was it Poland it was Poland.
Yeah, Poland.
That Mbappe guy is just and just France as a team. They're just really good. So there is kind of a different level when you get up to, and obviously there's teams that are really good that it's not like they advance to the World Cup final every World Cup. I mean,
that's what I was trying to say. Australia just got out of the group for the second time ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Poland hadn't gotten out of the group since the 1980s.
Yeah.
Okay. Like we're acting like the U.S. isn't any good. No, we're really good at this. Like we're in the top 16 countries in the world. Like we're legit. Like stop with the nonsense. My advice though for anybody out there who's not watching the World, like listen, if you're going to watch a game, watch Japan play. Japan is exactly how I think the United States should play. They bring full energy 100% of the time. Okay? They do this thing where they'll kind of let the other team have the ball in the first half, and they kind of take it easy, and then they come out in the second half like a house on fire. Okay? And the teams are just overwhelmed by their energy. So I think that's kind of a team like, you know, that I think the United States should kind of model themselves after. But listen, I'm really excited to watch the rest of this, watch the rest of these teams. We could have a Spain-Portugal matchup. We're going to get England against France. We're going to get Argentina against the Netherlands. Like, this stuff is going to be, you know, this World Cup soccer is really, really fun. So, anyway, good job by the USA. And, you know, hey, World Cup's coming here.
Yeah, 4 years. Yep.
So, anyway, all right, anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right, folks, enjoy your sports. Take it easy. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Tell us why we're wrong, mostly why we're right. And see you next time.
Yeah.